The year was 2247, and humanity had finally reached beyond its small corner of the universe. They had built ships that could travel faster than light, and they had started to explore the stars around them. But they had no idea what was waiting for them out there in the darkness of space. Captain Sarah Miller was commanding the exploration vessel Horizon near the Proxima Centauri system when her sensors detected something strange. A massive ship, bigger than anything humans had ever built, appeared out of nowhere. It was silver and gold, covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Sarah had never seen anything like it, and neither had anyone else on her crew. "This is Captain Miller of the Earth vessel Horizon," she said into her communication system. "We come in peace and wish to make contact." There was silence for a long moment. Then a voice came through, cold and mechanical. "Primitive species detected. You will remain where you are. The Galactic Council has been informed of your existence. Within hours, more alien ships arrived. They surrounded the horizon like wolves around a wounded animal." Sarah felt fear in her heart, but she also felt something else. Curiosity. These beings came from the stars, and humanity had always dreamed of meeting others like them. The aliens sent a message to Earth. It was not friendly, and it was not warm. It was a summons. Humanity was ordered to send representatives to a place called Vthra Prime, a space station where the Galactic Council held their meetings. There, humans would be assessed and their fate would be decided. The leaders of Earth gathered to choose who would speak for all of humanity. After many debates, they selected Ambassador Elena Vasquez. She was 52 years old, sharp as a knife, and feared nothing. She had negotiated peace treaties between warring nations, and she had faced down dictators without blinking. If anyone could handle aliens, it was her. Elena assembled her team. Colonel Marcus Chen would be her military advisor. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. Dr. Yuki Tanaka would handle science and technology, and James Okonkwo would manage communications and translation. Before they left, Elena studied everything humanity knew about the Galactic Council. The information was limited, gathered from intercepted signals and the few words the aliens had shared. The Council was made up of 47 species. Some had been traveling between stars for millions of years. They saw themselves as the rulers of the galaxy, and they did not seem happy that humans existed. The journey to Vthra Prime took 3 weeks. When the human ship finally arrived, Elena looked out the window and felt her breath catch in her throat. The station was enormous, as big as Earth's moon. It glowed with lights of every color, and thousands of ships flew around it like insects around a hive. "It is beautiful," Dr. Tanaka whispered. "It is meant to make us feel small," Colonel Chun replied. His voice was hard. He was right. From the moment they landed, the humans were treated like unwanted guests. Alien officials guided them through long hallways, but they walked too fast for the humans to keep up. When Elena asked questions, the officials pretended not to hear. They were given rooms in the lowest level of the station. The walls were gray and bare. The beds were hard. The food was tasteless paste that came from a machine. "These are the quarters for pre-sentient observational species," their guide informed them. His face showed what might have been a smile. "We hope you will be comfortable." Elena kept her expression calm, but inside she felt anger rising. Pre-sentient meant not yet intelligent enough to matter. They were being treated like animals in a zoo. Over the next few days, Elena tried to meet with council representatives. She wanted to learn about them, to understand their ways, to find common ground. But every door was closed to her. Every request was denied or ignored. What she did learn came from watching and listening. The council was dominated by 2 powerful species. The Thalorians were tall insect-like beings with the ability to read minds. They considered themselves superior to all others. The Marvathi were reptiles with scales of deep green. They lived for over 1,000 years and believed this made them wise beyond measure. Other species filled the ranks below them. Some were friendly, sneaking curious glances at the humans. But most looked at Elena and her team with disgust or amusement, like they were looking at bugs that had crawled into their home. Colonel Chum spent his time gathering intelligence. He had brought a small AI device hidden in his bag, and it was collecting data from the station systems. What it found worried him deeply. The council was powerful, yes, but it was also divided. Old conflicts simmered beneath the surface. Resources were stretched thin. Their technology had not improved in centuries. They are not as strong as they want us to believe, Chum told Elena one night. Perhaps, Elena said, but they are still stronger than us. On the third day, a message arrived. The humans would have their assessment hearing in the Great Deliberation Hall. They would stand before the entire council and prove that humanity deserved to exist. Elena read the message twice, then looked at her team. She saw fear in some eyes, anger in others. But she also saw determination. They want to judge us, she said quietly. They want to decide if we are worthy. And what if they decide we are not? James asked. Elena did not answer right away. She walked to the small window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, was home, was everything she loved. Then we will show them what humans are made of, she finally said. We have faced worse than this. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We have crawled out of every darkness that tried to swallow us. These aliens may have ruled the stars for millions of years, but they have never faced anything like humanity. The team nodded, drawing strength from her words. Whatever came next, they would face it together. But none of them could have imagined what waited for them in that great hall. The humiliation, the mockery, and the moment that would change the galaxy forever. The doors to the Great Deliberation Hall were made of some kind of metal that Elena had never seen before. They were 30 meters tall and covered in symbols that glowed with soft blue light. 2 guards stood beside them, their weapons humming with energy. Remember, Elena whispered to her team, keep your heads high. Show no fear. The doors swung open, and the humans walked inside. Elena had seen many impressive places in her life. The United Nations building, the halls of ancient kings, the great cathedrals of Europe. But nothing had prepared her for this. The chamber was vast beyond imagination. Thousands upon thousands of seats rose up in circular tiers, climbing so high that the top levels disappeared into shadow. Every seat was filled with an alien being, and every alien was looking down at them. The humans were led to a pit in the center of the floor. There were no seats for them. They were expected to stand and look up at their judges like criminals waiting for their sentence. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. The assessment of the species known as humans will now begin. The speaker was a Morvathi old beyond counting. His green scales faded to gray. He sat on a throne made of crystal, and his eyes were cold as winter ice. Elena knew from her research that this was High Arbiter Kethvoran, the leader of the council. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, she called out. Her voice was strong and clear. I speak for the people of Earth. We are honored to stand before this great assembly. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. It was not kind laughter. Kethvoran raised one clawed hand for silence. You are here to be evaluated, he said. The council will determine if your species is worthy of joining galactic civilization, and in what capacity. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air above the humans. It showed images of Earth, but not the beautiful parts. It showed wars, bombs exploding, cities burning. It showed pollution choking rivers and smoke filling skies. Your species is young, Cathvorin continued. You have existed for merely 200,000 years. Most of that time was spent fighting among yourselves. You developed nuclear weapons and then used them on your own people. You poisoned your own planet. More images appeared. Humans fighting, humans dying, humans destroying. Your biology is fragile, a Thylaurian delegate added. Her voice was like music, but her words were cruel. You cannot survive in vacuum. You cannot heal your own wounds. A simple virus can destroy millions of you. And your lifespans. She made a sound like disgust. You live barely 120 years. My youngest child is older than your entire civilization. The chamber erupted in laughter. Elena felt Colonel Chun tense beside her. She put a hand on his arm to calm him. Your technology is primitive, another delegate announced. This one was a Kilhari, a being made of living crystal. Your fastest ships would take a century to cross distances we travel in days. You have no psychic abilities. You cannot communicate through thought. You are deaf and blind to the greater universe. They are animals, someone shouted from the upper tiers. Why are we wasting time on animals? More shouts followed. Send them back to their cage, and let them destroy themselves. And they are not worth our attention, Elena waited. She let the insults wash over her like waves against rock. When the noise finally died down, she spoke. May I address the council? Cathvorin looked amused. You may have a moment, he said. That is the time we grant to trained creatures during exhibition. Elena stepped forward. She looked up at the thousands of faces staring down at her with contempt. And she began to speak. You are right about many things, she said. We are young. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt ourselves and our world. We do not deny this. Our history is written in blood and fire. She paused, letting her words settle. But you are also wrong about us. Yes, we have short lives, but we fill those lives with more passion and creativity than species that live for thousands of years. We know that every moment is precious because we have so few of them. We do not waste centuries in endless debate. We act. We create. We change. She speaks of change as if it were a virtue. The Thylaurian delegate interrupted. Change is chaos. Stability is strength. And yet, Elena continued calmly, in just 300 years, we went from riding horses to walking on our moon. In another 100, we reached the stars. How long did it take your species to achieve the same? Silence fell over the chamber. It was not a comfortable silence. We came here seeking friendship, Elena said. We hope to learn from you and to share what we have learned. We hope to find partners in the great journey of existence. We hoped, her voice grew stronger, that the universe would be kind. She looked directly at Cathvorin. What do you offer us? The High Arbiter smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. We offer you protection, he said. Humanity will become a protectorate species under Council guidance. You will surrender your sovereignty and your right to independent expansion. Your ships will not leave your own system without permission. You will provide labor and biological samples for our scientific programs. In return, we will ensure your survival. Elena felt her heart turn cold. This was not partnership. This was slavery with a pretty name. And if we refuse, Cathvorin leaned forward. There is no refusal, he said. You will accept our terms or face the consequences. You are alone in this galaxy, little human. You have no allies, no power, no hope. The Council has decided your fate. All that remains is for you to accept it. Elena asked for time to consult with Earth. The Arbiter granted 10 cycles with a mocking smile. Though I cannot imagine what your short-lived minds need to discuss, he added. The chamber laughed again. That night, in their gray quarters, the human delegation argued. Some wanted to accept the Council's offer. It was better than extinction. Some wanted to fight, even though they knew they would lose. Colonel Chun pulled out his hidden AI and showed them what it had gathered. The council was weaker than it appeared. Cracks ran through their alliance. Old hatred simmered. Their military was scattered and thin. They need us to be afraid, Chen said. Their power depends on fear. But I have studied their data. They are not gods. They are not unbeatable. They are just bullies who have never been challenged. Elena listened to all of them. Then she made her decision. She did not sleep that night. Instead, she wrote a message to Earth, to the president, to the world leaders, to all of humanity. She told them what had happened. She told them what she planned to do. And she asked for their trust. The reply came just before dawn. We stand with you. Do what must be done. Elena smiled for the first time since arriving at Vthra Prime. The council wanted humanity to kneel. They were about to learn that humans do not kneel. 10 cycles had passed, and the great deliberation hall was fuller than before. Word had spread through Vthra Prime that the primitive humans were returning to give their answer. Thousands of delegates had come to watch. They expected to see the little creatures bow and beg and accept their place at the bottom of galactic society. It would be entertaining. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood outside the massive doors with her team. She wore her best suit, deep blue with silver buttons. Her gray hair was pulled back tight. Her eyes were calm but burning with quiet fire. Are you sure about this? Colonel Chun asked. I've never been more sure of anything, Elena replied. The doors opened. The humans walked in. This time, Elena walked differently. She did not hurry. She did not look down. She moved like a queen entering her own throne room. Her team followed in perfect formation behind her. The aliens noticed. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Something had changed about these humans, and they could not quite understand what. High Arbiter Keth Voran sat on his crystal throne, looking down with ancient, tired eyes. The human delegation has returned, he announced. Ambassador Vasquez, the council awaits your answer. Do you accept our generous offer of protection and guidance? Elena walked to the center of the pit. She looked up at the thousands of faces, at the beings who had mocked her and insulted her people, at the rulers of the galaxy who thought humans were nothing more than clever animals. She took a deep breath. The people of Earth have reviewed your offer, she said. Her voice was clear as a bell, reaching every corner of the vast chamber. We rejected. Completely. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then chaos erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. Some jumped to their feet. Others made sounds of disbelief. Keth Voran raised his hand, and the noise slowly died. Perhaps you did not understand, he said. His voice was dangerous now. I said there is no refusal. This is not a negotiation. You are right, Elena replied. This is not a negotiation. A negotiation requires two parties who respect each other. You have shown us nothing but contempt since we arrived. You housed us in quarters meant for animals. You mocked our history and our biology. You laughed at our dreams. She turned slowly, looking at delegates across the chamber. You have shown us who you are, she continued. You are not allies. You are not partners. You are not friends. You are bullies dressed in ancient ritual, and humanity does not kneel to bullies. You dare. A Thylorian delegate stood, her mind reaching out to crush this insolent human, but she stopped. She could not read Elena's thoughts. The human mind was a fortress of pure determination. I dare, Elena said simply. I dare because I speak for 8 billion people who have survived ice ages and plagues and wars. I dare because my ancestors crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. I dare because that is what humans do. Colonel Chun stepped forward. We have been watching you, he said, Your council is not as powerful as you pretend. 3 of your member species are in cold wars with each other. Your military is scattered across a dozen conflicts you cannot win. Your technology has not improved in 10,000 years because you believe you have nothing left to learn. Gasps echoed through the chamber. How did these primitives know such things? You need us to be afraid, Chung continued. Your empire is built on fear. But we are not afraid. We are humans. Fear is just another challenge to overcome. Elena raised her voice. We came here seeking friendship. We came with open hands and open hearts. We hoped to find wisdom among the stars. Instead, we found arrogance and cruelty. She looked directly at Kethvorin. So, we will return home, she said. We will return to our small world, our short lives, our primitive technology. And we will build. We will grow. We will become something you cannot imagine. And when you need something from us, and you will need something from us, you will come to us as equals. Or you will not come at all. She turned her back on the High Arbiter. In Council protocol, this was the greatest insult possible. It meant the other party was not worth facing. You are making a grave mistake, Kethvorin roared, his ancient composure finally cracking. The Council will impose sanctions. No species will trade with you, or speak to you, or help you. You will be alone in the darkness. You will wither and die. The human delegation was walking toward the exit. They moved in perfect formation, heads high, backs straight. You need us more than we need you, Kethvorin shouted. You will come crawling back. Colonel Chun was the last to reach the doors. He paused and turned. His voice was quiet, but somehow it carried through the entire chamber. We have been alone before, he said. We are very good at it. The doors closed behind them. In the hall, pandemonium reigned. Delegates screamed at each other. Some demanded the humans be seized and forced to comply. Others laughed nervously, saying the primitives would return within a year, begging for forgiveness. But a few, the oldest and wisest, the ones who had seen civilizations rise and fall, sat quietly. They remembered something that the others had forgotten. They remembered that the most dangerous creature in the universe was not the strongest or the fastest or the oldest. It was the one that refused to give up. On the human ship, Elena stood at the window and watched Vthra Prime grow smaller. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she was smiling. Do you think we did the right thing? Dr. Tanaka asked. I think we did the only thing, Elena replied. They wanted us to be slaves. They wanted us to forget who we are. I would rather die free than live in chains. The ship turned toward home. Toward Earth. Toward a future that no one could predict. Behind them, the Galactic Council was already preparing their sanctions. They would cut humanity off from the rest of the universe. They would starve the upstart species into submission. They had no idea what they had just started. They had no idea that in trying to cage humanity, they had set loose something that would shake the galaxy to its core. The humans were going home, and they were going to change everything. The Galactic Council kept their promise. Within days of the human delegation's departure, they announced total sanctions against Earth. No species was allowed to trade with humans, communicate with humans, or travel to human space. Anyone who broke this rule would face severe punishment. The Council expected humanity to collapse. They expected panic, starvation, and eventually a desperate plea for forgiveness. They expected the short-lived primitives to come crawling back within a decade. They were wrong. The first year was hard. Humanity had to adjust to being truly alone. But humans had always been good at surviving hard times. They had survived ice ages with nothing but animal skins and fire. They had survived plagues that killed half their population. They had survived wars that burned entire continents. Isolation was just another challenge to overcome. Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned home as a hero. People called her the Iron Lady of the Stars. She spent the rest of her life traveling the world, telling her story, inspiring the next generation to reach for greatness. They said we were weak, she told audiences everywhere. They said we were primitive. They said we would fail. So let us prove them wrong. Let us show the galaxy what humanity can do when we have something to prove. And humanity got to work. Scientists and engineers from every nation came together. Old rivalries were forgotten. Borders meant nothing when the whole species had a common enemy. The greatest minds on Earth focused on one goal, making humanity strong enough to stand among the stars. The first breakthrough came in medicine. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, who had stood with Elena in that great hall, led a team that unlocked the secrets of human aging. Within 5 years, average lifespans reached 150 years. Within 10 years, 200. Within 20 years, people could expect to live 3 centuries or more. The Council had mocked humans for their short lives. Now those lives were growing longer with every passing year. The second breakthrough came in physics. A young scientist named David Chun, nephew of Colonel Marcus Chen, developed a new type of faster-than-light engine. He called it the Alcubierre drive, and it was 3 times faster than anything the Council had. The Council had mocked human technology. Now humans were leaving their technology behind. Colonel Marcus Chen became the commander of Earth's new military. He built a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Human ships were smaller than Council vessels, but they were faster, smarter, and crewed by people who fought with passion and purpose. We do not need to match their numbers, Chun told his officers. We need to outthink them. We need to be everywhere and nowhere. We need to be the danger they never see coming. Human colonies spread through space, not to the rich systems that the Council controlled, but to the places they had ignored. Barren moons, asteroid fields, planets too harsh for softer species. Humans built homes in places where others saw only death. And they found friends. The Valdari were the first. They were a warrior species with 4 arms and scales of deep red. The Council had conquered them centuries ago, broken their spirit, forced them to serve. But the Valdari had heard stories about the humans who stood before the Council and said no. They sent secret messengers to Earth, and they found allies who understood their pain. The Neth came next. They were small beings with psychic powers that the Council had tried to exploit. Thousands had fled Council space, living as refugees in the dark places between stars. Humanity offered them a home, and in return, the Neth shared their gifts. Other species followed. The Korathi, masters of biology. The Sylvanthi, artists and dreamers. The Groth, builders of impossible machines. All of them outcasts, all of them forgotten, all of them drawn to the light of humanity's defiance. The human coalition grew. It was not an empire. Humans did not want to rule others. It was a family of species bound together by choice, not force. Back in Council space, things were not going well. The Thalorians and the Morvathi had moved from Cold War to open hostility. 3 protectorate species attempted rebellion. Resources were stretched thin across too many conflicts. And then there was the Sketh. The Sketh Dominion was a power from beyond the galaxy's edge. They were conquerors, destroyers, a hive mind of insect-like creatures that consumed everything in their path. For centuries, they had been a distant threat. Now they were growing bolder, testing Council defenses, probing for weakness. High Arbiter Kethvorin watched his empire crumble. He was ancient now, over 2,000 years old, and he had never faced a crisis like this. His allies bickered. His military was scattered. His people had grown soft and complacent after millennia of easy dominance. Some Council members whispered that they should contact the humans. Perhaps the primitives could help. Perhaps it was time to reconsider. Kethvorin refused. His pride would not allow it. Humanity had insulted him, had turned their backs on him, had made him look foolish. He would rather watch his empire burn than ask them for help. But the universe did not care about his pride. In the 27th year of human isolation, a Sketh battle fleet broke through Council defenses. They struck without warning, without mercy. A major colony world with 3 billion inhabitants was destroyed in a single day. Panic spread through Council space. This was not a raid. This was an invasion. Kethvorin finally understood the truth. His empire was dying. His people were helpless. All his ancient power and wisdom meant nothing against an enemy that did not fear him. He had only one choice left. With trembling claws, the High Arbiter composed a message. It was addressed to Earth, to the species he had once called primitive, to the humans he had tried to break. He asked for a reconsideration of diplomatic status. He could not bring himself to ask for help, but everyone knew what he meant. On Earth, Ambassador Elena Vasquez, now 152 years old, but still sharp as ever, received the message. She read it twice, then smiled. "They laughed at us," she said quietly. "They called us animals. They tried to make us slaves. And now they come to us for help." She wrote a single reply, just one sentence. "You may come to us." As equals, the game had changed. Humanity was no longer the primitive species begging for acceptance. They were a power that even the mighty council could not ignore. And Elena knew this was only the beginning. The council delegation traveled to human space with heavy hearts. They were used to being the powerful ones, the ones who summoned others. Now they were the ones who had been summoned. It was a bitter taste. High Arbiter Kethvorin led them personally. He was over 2,000 years old now, his scales faded and cracked, his movements slow and painful. But he knew this moment was too important to trust to anyone else. When their ship emerged from faster-than-light travel near the human home system, the council delegates gasped. Where they expected primitive stations and simple ships, they found a civilization that took their breath away. New Geneva, humanity's capital station, was a ring of silver and gold that circled the planet Mars. Millions of lights sparkled across its surface. Hundreds of ships flew around it in perfect formation. "Impossible," a Thylorian delegate whispered. They were primitives just 30 years ago, but the evidence was before their eyes. Humanity had not just survived isolation. They had thrived. The council ship was guided to a landing platform. Human officials met them with polite smiles. There were no insults, no mockery, no quarters meant for animals. The delegates were given rooms with soft beds and windows that looked out on the stars. The next day, they were led to a great hall for the negotiations. It was not as large as the chamber on Vthra Prime, but it was beautiful in a different way. Warm light came through windows of colored glass. Plants and flowers grew in every corner. The air smelled of life and hope. And sitting at the head of the table was Ambassador Elena Vasquez. Kethvorin barely recognized her. The young woman who had stood in his hall decades ago was now ancient by human standards. Her hair was white as snow, her face lined with age. But her eyes were the same, calm, steady, and burning with quiet fire. "High Arbiter," she said. Her voice was still strong. "Welcome to New Geneva. Please, sit. We have much to discuss." Beside Elena sat Colonel Marcus Chun, now a general and representatives of every species in the human coalition. The Voldari, the Neth, the Korathi, and dozens more. They had all come to see this moment. Kethvorin sat heavily. His old bones ached. His old pride ached more. "Your civilization has grown," he said. "We are impressed." "Thank you," Elena replied. "Your empire is crumbling." "We have noticed." There was no cruelty in her words, just simple truth. The Sketh had taken 12 more systems since their first attack. Council forces were retreating on every front. Billions had died. "We require assistance," Kethvorin said. The words tasted like poison. "The Sketh are a threat to all civilized species. Surely you understand that if the Council falls, your coalition will be next." Elena nodded slowly. "We understand the threat. We have been watching. We know the Sketh better than you think." She leaned forward. "We will help you," she said, "but not on the old terms. Not as a protectorate species. Not as servants or laborers or subjects. We will help as equals, as partners in a new council, restructured and reformed, where every species has a voice and a vote." Kethvorin wanted to refuse. His pride screamed at him to walk away. But he thought of his people, his worlds, the billions who would die if he let his pride destroy them. "What you ask would end everything we have built," he said quietly. "What you built was built on fear and dominance," Elena replied. "It was already ending. We are offering you a chance to build something better." The negotiations lasted 3 days. They were difficult and painful. The council delegates had to surrender privileges they had held for millennia. But in the end, they had no choice. The treaty was signed. The human coalition joined the galactic community, not as the lowest members, but as equals. Humans and their allies would have seats on a new governing council. Old laws that favored elder species would be reformed. Protectorate species would be given paths to independence. And humanity would join the war against the Sketh. 1 week later, the first human fleet arrived at the front lines. General Chun commanded from the bridge of his flagship, the Elena Vasquez. Beside him stood Valdari warriors, Neth psychics, and soldiers from a dozen coalition species. The Sketh had been expecting broken, demoralized council forces. Instead, they found something new. Human ships burst out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the Sketh formation. They were smaller than council vessels, smaller than Sketh hive ships, but they moved like nothing the insects had ever seen. They struck and vanished and struck again, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. Human marines sported Sketh vessels with weapons designed to exploit the insects' weaknesses. They fought with a ferocity that terrified the hive mind. These small, fragile, short-lived creatures did not fear death. They ran toward it, screaming battle cries that echoed through the corridors. The first battle was a human victory. So was the second, and the third, and the fourth. The Sketh, for the first time in their existence, began to feel something like fear. The war lasted 5 years. It was brutal and costly. Many humans and their allies gave their lives. But slowly, steadily, the tide turned. The Sketh were pushed back, then pushed back further, then finally driven beyond the galaxy's edge. On the day the last Sketh ship fled into the darkness between galaxies, there was celebration across all of civilized space. On every world and every station, beings of 100 species cheered and danced and wept with joy. And in the Great Hall on New Geneva, an old Thylorian diplomat approached an even older human ambassador. "I was there that day," the Thylorian said, "when you stood in our chamber and we laughed at you. I remember thinking you were foolish, that you would be destroyed. I was wrong. I have never been so glad to be wrong." Elena smiled. Age had taken much from her, but not her spirit. "How did you do it?" the Thylorian asked. "How did your species rise so fast? How did you become what you are?" Elena looked out the window at the stars, stars that had once seemed so far away, so impossible to reach. She thought of all the humans who had come before her, all the struggles and triumphs, all the darkness they had crawled through to reach this moment of light. "You told us we were small," she said softly. "You told us we were weak and primitive and temporary. You said we did not matter. She turned to face the Thylorian, and her eyes were bright with something that might have been pride, or joy, or the simple fierce love of being alive. So we decided to prove you wrong. That is what humans do. We adapt. We endure. We remember. We never give up. And when someone tells us we cannot do something, we smile and do it anyway. She raised a glass of wine, a human drink, now popular across the galaxy. To the future, she said. It belongs to everyone now, across the galaxy. In hidden corners and forgotten worlds, beings of 100 species heard the story of humanity. They heard about the primitives who had been mocked and dismissed and told they did not matter. They heard about how those primitives had risen, had built, had fought, had won. And in their hearts, something stirred, something that the old council had tried so hard to crush. Something that humanity had carried with them from their first steps on Earth to the farthest reaches of space. Hope. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had always intended.